Hi everyone. I've been contemplating this video for quite a long time now, and it's been quite a journey because I don't feel like 10th edition is where Warhammer should be right now, and I don't think we need an 11th edition, sorry. I think what we do need is something in between 10th and 9th, like a 9.5, because there are some aspects of 10th that I think are quite enjoyable, but there are most aspects of 10th are just quite dull. So this video is predicated on that philosophy, that game design idea. So let's start with what I like about 10th. I think 10th has amazing datasheet layout, easy to read, easy to understand, easy to find whatever you need to find, right? So I think that's 10th has the best datasheet layout I've ever seen in any tabletop wargaming. So I would like this to carry forward or some form or some variant of this. I also like the fact that the detachments are universal, meaning you can use, or obviously not universal, you cannot use an Adeptus Astartes detachment in an Astra Militarum army, but as in universal within that faction, right? So I could be a Black Templar player and I actually use the Anvil Siege, I think it's called, something like that, because I like tanks, right? So I like that. I like that detachments are universal, because when you do think of a chapter, most chapters will have the siege tactics, the stealth tactics, the all around this type of thing, and the fast attack or whatever. So I do like the fact that detachments you can use any chapter or use any army, but I've applied any detachment. I think it's a really fucking good idea. Stratagems, I like it, but I feel like it could be an improvement. What I would like to see is maybe you have three stratagem points per army. So you'd have the variety of stratagems we had in 9th edition, right? But you only could select up to three per codex or something on the lines of that. I don't know. I've not really thought about that, but nevertheless, 10th edition stratagems really good. Really enjoy them. Nothing wrong with them whatsoever. Well, could be a few improvements, but yeah. Now I am coming at this from a person who prefers the sort of thematicism of Warhammer, right? This is, and it does take into consideration of competitiveness and balance, but I've ultimately come to my decisions or these decisions through the thematicness of 40k. So with that being said, what I don't like about 10th is there's no psychic phase, which ultimately makes psychic heavy armies or primary psychic armies have them. It makes have them like a sort of a bit of a bad experience because there's nothing that sort of placates to their sort of style, their sort of lore. When previous editions, these Thousand Suns types would primarily be useful in the psychic phase. I also don't like the fact that granular points isn't a thing. I think granular points is such a important thing for Warhammer 40k because of where the system has originally come from. Because you do need these granular edits to particular armies. It's not like AOS where it was built from the ground up to include sort of points per unit rather than points per unit plus points per equipment or item or whatever. I think granular points need to return for flavorful and unique army creation. I also don't like the fact that there are restricted character customizations. I mean, I'm talking from the perspective of a Space Marine here, right? But I have friends who play Tau, I have friends who play Tyranid, and they tell me the exact same thing. The character customization options compared to previous editions is just null and void. It's boring. It's not inspiring. You don't really make your own like hero in a sense. You just slap some basic war gear onto a basic data sheet, and it's just not really inspiring. So I would like to see an in-depth character customization. And I think when you are talking about characters, you need to talk about the character rule, the leader rule, and I think it's a awful rule. I think, especially when you're talking about your chapter master levels and your commanders of the entire armies, they should be able to join any squad they desire, because it's their army ultimately. I think the character rule is just needless. It's stupid. I mean, I'm gonna give an example of Helbrecht, right? Helbrecht, a primary fighter, close combat character that can't join Blade Guard veterans. I think that's stupid. You know, it's just, it removes the thematicism Warhammer was actually built on. So I think, yeah, I really do not like the leader rule. I think that should be removed in its entirety. Legends as a concept should only be for out of production models as well. I think in the advent of plastic heresy, a lot of people bought into heresy. No, not heresy specifically, but bought into them units, right? Your Spartans, your Kratos tank, your Contemptors. And I do understand the fact that your Space Marine types have a lot of units to choose from, but that should only mean that each individual, when you take into account of heresy, plastic heresy, and plastic heresy units and their data use, for me, I think they need to come back, right? But that doesn't mean that other factions shouldn't get fuck all. I think other factions should have their range increased by fivefold if the plastic heresy stuff came back to match play, as we call it. Also, the terrain is just really uninspiring. I am sick of looking at L-shaped terrain. It's awful, it's ugly, it's uninspiring. It feels like Warhammer 40k now feels like the Overwatch of tabletop games. It's just, there's little depth. Yeah, and I would like to see terrain like the old Aquila strong points, the old bastions. Maybe it's because I am looking at this through rose-tinted glasses. Maybe, I'm not sure, but yeah, I would like to see some of the old traditional terrain be made new with current technology, current CAD, current ways of molding plastic. Just bring it back to life type of thing. We know these things are popular because when they do go on limited release, they sell out, or they sell so much. So it would be nice for these to come back. And also, finally, the lack of thematic elements. And I'm primarily going to focus here on, for example, the lack of challenges, right? I think the way challenges, if I'm correct, because I've been playing since 5th edition, challenges used to work in a way that if you challenged an opponent's character and that opponent denied it, that opponent couldn't fight. Now, I would like to see essentially a simplified version of that. Instead of that opponent not being able to fight, maybe like a -1 to your hits or something of that type. So basically, I've just covered a lot of stuff that I want to see in the previous discussion, but I think it's important for what we will call 11th edition. I'm going to say 9.5 because it's what I want, but what we call 11th edition, I think this is what's important for us, or to come back essentially. First, Psychic Phase must come back. Psychic Phase needs to come back because it just allows a differentiation between army. Because right now everything's move, shoot, right? It'd be very interesting to have that extra phase, so then an army could just focus on that phase, making it player interactions different depending on the army you field. The traditional point system needs to come back. This is just the granular points. Obviously, we've gone over this. I think it's important that it's come back just for army customization, but I think also balance as well. And it's just annoying as well to see that you're making an army list. You've got 5 points in the current way you make an army. You've got 5 points left, and it's just like, what do you do? Because you can't bring anything for 5 points. Where previously you could probably put a plasma gun on something or whatever, or melt a bomber. So I think granular points need to come back. Better character interactions, primarily focus on the leadership rule. Here, gone over that already. Legends as a concept should only be for OOP models, like production models. I've gone over that as well. Again, plastic heresy should be in 40k, other than your character types, obviously. But majority of plastic characters should be in 40k, especially for the Chaos players. I mean, I'm talking as an Imperium player, but for your Chaos players, I mean, it's crazy. Give them the Dreadclaw drop pod, the Kratos tank. They need some stuff. Gone over terrain, gone over thematic elements. Now, what is interesting, I really would love to see, is better rules for Apocalypse. Looking at Heresy 3.0's Titan rules, I would love to see a variant of that translated over 40k. Instead of having primary and exposed armor points, you would have obviously just a different toughness value for both of them. So, like, I don't know, toughness 16 or whatever toughness of the Titan is, right? So, toughness 16 for the primary armor, and toughness, I don't know, 15 for the exposed armor or whatever that may be. Whole points gets converted into wounds. You know, so if you knock out a Titan's leg, you reduce its movement, right? I don't know. I mean, we don't know ultimately how it's going to work in Heresy. So this is just a suggestion. I would like to see more thematic elements in 40k. So with this, I'm going to play devil's advocate, right? Because GW want to go through the simplified, not simple process, right? With everything now, I'm going to sort of try and do that the best of my ability, even though I disagree with that approach. So I think, going as much I would like to see a psychic phase, I think the reality is it's probably not going to come back. So, but we do need a variant of it. So what I would suggest is a simplified psychic phase interaction, right? Maybe it's not a traditional psychic phase as we think of it, but these are abilities that are split up into each different phase. So your movement, your shooting, your charge, your combat, you know, and it goes off the character's leadership. Prime example, unit shooting phase. You want to boost a unit's ability to hit. So, weapon skill. Oh, sorry, ballistic skill, sorry. And then you would do that, depending on the character's leadership, you would roll on the character's leadership on a 2d6. The better the psycho, the more the dice. And if it goes off, that unit, that targeted unit now has a +1 ballistic skill instead of shooting on. Maybe if it's Space Marine 3s, now it's shooting on 2s type of thing. So it's sort of like that, the same thing for the damage phase, right? We're going to do like Warp Lightning or something on the level of that. Shooting phase goes off on the character's leadership, and then if it goes off, it does X amount of D3 mortal wounds or whatever. So yeah, I think that's what would be likely to see. Again, like this process, these ideas are coming through, or that I've got now, are based on the simplified, not simple games philosophy that GW has with 40k, and my idea to bring back a level of thematicism and depth to 40k. So traditional points is really important. I think there's correlation between traditional points and unit customization, right? Comparing 9th and 10th data sheets, and I'm going to focus on the Deathwatch veterans here, right? For example, Deathwatch veterans in 9th, they're able to take all of the units in that squad are able to take a Storm Shield and a Bowgun, right? So for thematic purposes, I was trying to make a Breacher squad, but for 40k, because Breachers don't exist for 40k. In 10th edition, you cannot do that. You only can equip with what's in the box, which is something I do massively disagree with, depending on which unit we're talking about, right? So I think there's two issues here. One, depending on the unit, you should have access to more equipment than just what's comes in the actual physical box, right? And two, maybe I'm completely wrong about this, but I do think there's a correlation between traditional points being gone and sort of this sort of points as power, what we have now, for you lot who remember that, and the unit customization. I will also like to consider Deathwing, in which they've lost quite a few bits of war gear too, mainly like the flail, and I can't remember the big axe. No, it's not an axe. It's like a mace thing. With an incense bulb thing at the top. I can't remember what it's called now. But back in the day as well, I think I'm talking about maybe 8th edition or prior. Like Astra Militarum units used to be able to take multiple of the same special weapons in the same squad. For example, let's say 2 melter guns, 2 plasma guns, 2 flamers, etc., right? Where now it's like you take 1 melter gun or and 1 plasma. I just think like it makes the games longer because instead of having to roll for the same weapon, you've got to roll for different weapons. It's like if they want to go down the simplification route, then I think adding customization back to allow particular units to field more of the same weapon would make games faster because you're not having to, okay, well, look for particular wargear stat lines and their damage outputs and their attack profiles and all that jargon. I also think that, and I covered this a second ago, do not limit to what just comes in the kit. It's important that you don't do that because it allows for more customization and more depth ultimately. So yeah, that's my review on enhanced / streamlined character customization. I think it's very important to streamline all these character profiles. Back in 7th, we used to have one captain profile. That captain profile could equip a certain set of armor, and then that set of armor came with some buffs, whether it be deep strike for terminators. I think relic armor give 2 plus armor save, and special. I can't remember right now, but I think I would like to see that return. You have one character profile, one captain profile. That profile has access to all the options essentially. With all them options, you can select which one, which armor you want through that armor type. Then you select which weapons are available. Which I think, the only thing that really changes, really, for like say Captain Terminator armor, is the ability to take, which I'm not sure. I think you can just take anything. I might be wrong. 7th edition was a very long time ago. But I would like to see this for not just your captain profiles, but for your lieutenant profiles, for your chaplain and apothecary. Most of my codexes now are just filled in by variants of captain profiles, and it's just annoying. I also will go back to the idea of this leader rule where you only can put your commander in the same type of armor as the squad. I think it's stupid. It takes the fun out of the game. It makes zero sense. That needs to be removed. I'd also like to see the option, again, we're going back to 7th edition, 8th edition, and 9th edition, to upgrade your captain to a chapter master, upgrade your tech marine to a force lord, allowing these units to have access to better special rules. Again, it's about just making your army your own. It's about just, right now, 40k just seems like we are essentially like using copy paste of armies, right? There's not really that much variety. Where prior editions, variety was key, I think, in order to play the game. I'd also like to say bring back relics. Relics was a fun addition. The Burning Blade, oh god, that was really fucking good back in the day. So for the better character interactions, there's a few things we can do here. Now, personally, remove the leader keyword. Have any character be able to join any squad, with exceptions. You're not gonna, yeah, maybe there's a few exceptions with that, but you ultimately let any character join any squad. I think if you don't want to do that because of balance, let's redefine the leader rule to say this model can be attached to these following units, and those following units benefit from rules like when this character leads X unit, this unit gets X amount of extra attacks or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So if you don't want to do it via ballot, if you don't want to just remove the leader rule outright and replace it with something that allows for that character to join any unit, then at least redefine it to where that character can join any unit, but the buffs only apply to specific units. Again, I bring up the Helbrecht with Blade Guard Vet Squad situation. For some reason, Helbrecht cannot join a Blade Guard Vet Squad, which is crazy because these units, these models, are knightly models. They should be able to join the same squad. And I think it's also important because it makes army building less linear. Right now, army building is quite linear because because of these arbitrary restrictions, the leader keyword, you are less likely to try new units because you've only got a certain subset of units that this leader can interact with. So again, the removal of that keyword would be good because it would allow players to try different units. When Legends was first introduced in 10th, not in prior editions, I just want to focus on 10th here. I and many others in the prior year had heavily bought into heresy vehicles and heresy units, heresy contemptors, heresy whatever. Because, for example, Chaos do not have an effective assault tank unit, Kratos tank. Where Marines, we had the what do you call it? The Repulse Executioner. The Chaos didn't have anything like that, right? So when they got access to Chaos, it's broadened their range, made them more fighter, more killer, more. What was the word I'm looking for? It makes them better. Now, when Legends kicked off 10th, I was really, really angry. Well, I've spent so much money, invested so much time in getting these models for my army, and now they are null and void just because of a stupid decision made by whoever made this stupid decision. So, this is my proposal. Only Legends out of production models. That is it. If players want to take, for example, and this is only applied, by the way, to Space Marines, this is not applied for any other faction because other factions have less models than Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines sometimes. So this is only applied to Space Marines. If you are a Chaos Space Marine or a Space Marine player, you should have a tax on that model. This tax would be, if you're a Space Marine player, you need a Tech Marine. When you have a Tech Marine in your army, you have access to the Forge World stuff or the plastic heresy stuff. This used to be a thing back in 7th edition, if I was correct, and maybe 8th edition. You might have to check me on that, but I remember you would have to take essentially a Forge Lord in order to have access to these units. Same thing, but with this, I think it's called the Warsmith for Chaos. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you would have to take the Chaos version of a Tech Marine essentially to have access to these units. If that isn't going to happen, then Legends rules need to be updated at least once a year because there are some ridiculous things. For example, when the Forge World resin Spartan first came out, it only had access to the bolter options, on the turret just above the main door. When the plastic kit came out, it could switch the heavy bolter or the flamer to two twin las cannons, right? That's never been reflected in the rule set of 40k, even though it's been an option for like the last 3 years, right? So I do think these data sheets need to be updated minimum once a year. I'd also argue as well, you need to go further. If Legends is to be separate from mainline 40k in terms of units you can access, then why not have more heresy options? Because it's not going to be, they're not going to be played in match plays. But when you do have these options, it just allows for customers and for players to essentially buy into these units, right? Well, right now, you are locking them out for no reason. I would have happily started in 30k, 40k ad mech army if I had access to like the Thanatar and the Thralax Automata in a Legends format, but I don't. So the only barrier to entry is are the rules that GW are not willing to make. If that changes, I'll happily buy into a 30k, 40k Mechanicus army. But right now, I would classify myself as a missed deal because I was fully willing and prepared to go all in, but because there's no rules to support it and I do not want to proxy, I'd be at an advantageous position financially when buying a Horus Heresy Mechanicus army for 40k. And for the people who don't know, a few years ago, there was supposed to be a book which was Admech versus Tau. I think it's called Fire of Craxes or something like that. And Fire of Craxes was a Forge World book, I think was previewed in 2019, maybe 2018, in which would actually bring the Thanatar and Thralax Automata into 40k. So make of that as what you will. So they did have the intention to bring these units to 40k at some point. Now, I wrote this PowerPoint a few weeks ago. I've been contemplating it ever since. So there's a few things I don't think are fully correct here. One is, I don't think you should ultimately remove L-shaped terrain. But I think there needs to be more inspiring terrain. I think L-shaped terrain and them type of rules should be limited to only your match play events and your tournament events. Other than that, if you look at the history of 40k terrain, you've had so much. You've had so much. The Aquila strong point, Aegis defense line, the battlescape debris as shown here. Like you've had the Bastion, and those are just a few. You've had so much to choose from, and the fact that we're just stuck with L-shaped terrain is kind of embarrassing because we've had so much in the past. I even miss the old trees. The old trees were beautiful. Now, in terms of rules, bring back dangerous terrain to where it's, I think back in the day you could essentially damage a unit if you rolled wrong. Maybe now let's simplify it. -1 movement when you're going through dangerous terrain. For example, you're walking through a battlescape, which is the one in the bottom right, -1 movement. Like, again, I'm thinking through this in the lens of the simplified, not simple logic. Even though I disagree with it. But we need to bring this flavour back, ultimately. This is got to be my biggest, I was going to say biggest pet peeve, but there's certainly a lot of pet peeves I have with 10th. But this is certainly among one of them. When I first opened my codex and I found like all the combo weapons were just sort of one profile with very indifferent special rules, I thought it was boring. Why doesn't a combi flamer have a D6 flamer profile? It's stupid, it's wrong, it makes games boring. Change it. Just change it. Bring back the old combi weapons. On that note, I would like to see more variation between weapon profiles. And I'm looking at the Infernus Heavy Bolter here, because the Infernus Heavy Bolter have essentially what I would like in a combo weapon. You have the primary weapon, which is the bolter, and then you've got the secondary weapon, which is the flamer. And you select one of these when firing. Previous editions, you could fire both. One would be at -1 BS. Now, you just select one. Perfect. I am fine with that. No worries. Bring it back. Or not bring it back, but apply it to everything. Apply what you did to the Infernus Heavy Bolter to all the combo weapon and combo weapon likes as well. With the Vanguard veterans, the heirloom weapons are just embarrassing when that unit has access to so many melee weapons. You've got your power fists, you've got your thunder hammers, lightning claws, chain swords. You've got so many weapons within that kit, and for all them to be simplified down to heirloom weapons is just embarrassing and unflavorful, and it just makes for a worse experience. Bring these profiles back. Make sure these profiles are different enough so that each can be viable. Now it's hard, because at the end of the day, a power fist and a thunderhammer more or less will be striking a similar unit. But right now, on the top of my head, because I've not put much thought into it, I don't have an idea. I know you could different. Maybe one has devastating wounds, one doesn't. I'm not sure, but yeah, bring back weapon profiles and make sure, or not bring them back, but make them different enough so they're all viable. And where they have simplified them or oversimplified them, like the combo weapons, unoversimplify them, bring them back, make them intuitive. So to simplify all of this, I want 10th edition 40k, the main rule set, but essentially with how 9th edition codexes or codices operated with sort of more customization. Less stratagems would be better. Or use my idea at the beginning where you would have a stratagem points, and in these stratagem points you would have a variation of stratagems, and you can only select 3 or how many, 6 or whatever. More customization throughout the whole thing. More thematic choices. Let games feel like you are in a Warhammer or the Warhammer 40k universe rather than like a card game. Bring back, one thing I would love to see, and this isn't going to happen, but one thing I would love to see is to bring back the initiative strat for better close combat interactions. I've always said this, and I will always say this. An Imperial Guard will never strike us faster than Eldar. I have never been a fan of 8th, 9th, and 10th combat where you go, then I go, or then you go again, or whatever it may be. Initiative was so much better because it's simpler. Do I have a better or higher initiative than you? No. Okay, then I strike first. Yes. Okay, then you strike first. And this is a little funny. I've been in this hobby for like 18 years now, or 19 years maybe. And I just remember these old pots, and these old hexagon pots are beautiful. Cause a lot of problems, but they're beautiful nonetheless. But with me saying that, again, I've been in this hobby for 18, 19 years. So there's a lot of things that I remember. There's a lot of bad and a lot of good. And I understand the simplification process so Warhammer 40k can be accessible. But we've gone past simplification and now we are dulling down the game. And I was speaking to a few of my friends who are no longer into 40k, recently tried to get into 40k again. It's too simple. They don't like the simplicity. And they are coming from 7th edition as well, so they don't like the simplicity. They want a bit of richness, a bit of depth to their games. Right now, Warhammer 40k does not provide that. So, with that information as you will.